Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UPNradio.com.
Hello, everybody. This is Lori H. Schwartz, the World of Schwartz here, in our inaugural show here at the Universal Broadcasting Network. And I'm going to be taking you weekly through tech trends impacting your business. That's right. I'm Tech Cat Lori H. Schwartz. And it's so fitting that on my first show, I have my business partner, colleague, and mentor to get into some exciting business trends here happening in the United States of America, Los Angeles. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Seth Hurst. He carries that with him wherever he goes.
It was so hard to get all these people in this room, this tiny room.
So Brian and I are both managing partners at a company called StoryTech, and StoryTech is all about facilitating that collaboration between storytellers, technologists, all sorts of content creators, and we are here every week. I'm going to be here every week to talk about tech trends for businesses, for new companies, for content creators, for anyone who is trying to figure out how to move through that media and entertainment space. And I thought it was very fitting. This week in town is a big conference called VidCon, and VidCon is all about all the YouTube content creators and all the things that they're doing and their fans, hundreds of people coming all over the country, actually globally, to meet their favorite YouTube content creators. So Brian, what is going on? Like, what is the big deal about these YouTube content creators?
Well, it's actually the democratization of media. And what's great is that the early YouTube content creators sort of created the playbook for how you build an audience, how frequent, what the best practices would be. And more YouTube creators came on, and they were able to build an audience. It was really, I want to say, bottom up. So what you had was a technology platform that was enabling this democratization of media.
So anybody could get on and upload video.
Yeah, and some people were film school students, and some people were just regular Joes and Janes that you and I or anyone could identify with that found fascinating. And so what happened was that the people who really were great creators and had great content and sort of had their finger on the pulse, they rose to the top pretty quickly. So it's not just, well, I want to say it's not just about cat videos anymore, except that Grumpy Cat is very popular.
Right.
And so and so you have this opportunity, and I think now it has, in a very strange way, it has disintermediated traditional media companies, and people are now, and the technology companies that are enabling analytics and dashboards, and they're looking at being media companies. So I don't think of Facebook as a social company anymore. I think of Facebook as a media company.
Yeah, that's the fascinating thing, and we always talk about this, is that you used to have studios and networks and writers and producers, and then you'd have the pipe, whoever was distributing the content. But now everybody is doing everything, and so you can't think, I'm going to go to a studio or network anymore, because everybody is a studio or network.
Well, the idea is there used to be gatekeepers. I once wrote an editorial, and I said, it's like the people are in the tower, and you can't have access to the tower. So the villagers were gathering at the bottom of the tower.
With fire.
No, not with fire, just with talent. And the crowd outside the tower exerted so much pressure in the tower that actually some of the executives who were in that tower jumped to be with the democratization of media, and they left. So you had traditional executives going to digital and giving them greater know-how and best practices. And the pilot creation system for television is bad.
Right.
I mean, it's very expensive, and it's a very expensive process. So now, first the networks were saying, well, we could look to YouTube and online as a piloting process. We'll create something, and Machinima was out to do this. Create this, distribute it to an audience, because if you're Machinima, you have a platform of fanboys. If it resonates, you go to the next step. I mean, I'm working on a series myself, as you know, right now, that's actually starting online. I mean, there is the assurance of a television series, but we're going to take 18 months to build the audience online before we take them into television.
So let's talk about that, because this is why VidCon is is happening this week in Anaheim, which to me is like a faraway place, but it's really only an hour outside of Los Angeles. But why are hundreds of young people going to VidCon? And that's so they can meet their favorite YouTuber. And what happens on YouTube right now is you subscribe. You subscribe to creators that you love. And so weekly, daily, however it is they publish, you get an alert when your favorite person has put up more content. And so now all of a sudden, there is this audience. And so now all of a sudden, brands and businesses are surrounding these YouTube content creators. So when you go to VidCon, it's not just YouTube content creators and fans, but there are actually brands there now because they know that there's audience there gathering. So talk to me a little bit about the power of these YouTubers and their audience. We call them influencers, but what's so amazing about all these people that gather around these YouTubers and their
Well, it's no different than Comic-Con, except from a generational perspective and the way the YouTube generation views brands, which is, if a brand is enabling a solution or enabling them to get programming, it's not like a sellout. It's like, hey, thanks for your help.
Right.
So there's no animosity from the audience towards the brand. That's the first thing. The second thing is anytime you gather an audience and there's some traction, at least in Western civilization, you look for a way to monetize the audience. And so the brands are not only looking to sponsor, it's not about sponsorship as much as it is about integration and brands becoming characters and creating brand experiences and branded content that actually follows YouTube best practices. So, I mean, I think one of the greatest studies, and I think it should be a Harvard Business School study, is Vice. And how Vice started out is very democratic and has now moved up, and they're a media company with a major force.
So they have a YouTube channel, they have a magazine, I think.
Now they're on air.
And they're going to be bought too, right?
I think there's already been a major investment.
Yeah.
So, and that's what happens. It's like I was just talking to you about Epoxy TV. So Epoxy TV just got another $6 million.
Brian and I
today.
Unfortunately talk about this stuff all the time.
It's to see who can out-geek one another. Lori usually wins. But Epoxy TV is this platform that allows for social distribution of your video in ways that it hasn't been done before. It gives you a dashboard. You don't have to be hashtagged for them to be able to track your tweet. So all of a sudden you've got this little company who's getting funded, and Time Warner's one of the funders, who's coming in and got the attention of a major capital.
Yep.
And what it is the ability to manage and monetize an audience. So,
which is all really what this is about, right?
Correct.
It's figuring out audience, figuring out sponsor, and people making money off of this ecosystem. And you and I were also talking about this in the green room, which, by the way, is beige. In the green room, which I was surprised about. But every day I'm reading another little news article about a social media company being bought by a major network because they're all trying to figure out how do we integrate that social media behavior into broadcast television, because YouTube does it already. It's natural. It's a digital platform. You're online. You're clicking. You're sharing. Now you're sitting back in your living room. How do we enable that same behavior?
So here's a couple things. Number one, they're buying audiences. That's the first
thing. So if they invest in one of these social media platforms, they're basically buying that audience.
They're buying an audience first. The second thing is that I believe that there is disruption on the way from just the linear expression. So YouTube is actually not capable of the interaction for a story world that's coming, people who want to be part of the story. They're not capable of facilitating the conversation between the storyteller and the audience.
And let's stop here, because this is one of Brian's great things, brilliant things, and this is also something that we focus on a lot around StoryTech, is story worlding. Can you describe what story worlding is all about?
Yeah, I mean, they used to call it franchising, but a story world sets up rules. I get involved. I think one of the best examples is Supernatural, where the fans are so rabid and fanatical that they know the show inside out. They write fan fiction for the show, and in that case, Eric Kripke, who was the creator of the show, and Mick G, the director, and they grabbed fan canon, the fans. So canon are the rules of the story, sense of place, the way the characters behave with one another, just the general, I'm fond of saying the Constitution of the United States set up the story world that is our country, because we live by those rules, and we break them.
And we get upset when they're broken.
We do.
Yeah.
As any fan of a true story world will guard the canons of that story world.
Right.
So you have the fans, like it's famous that when Heroes sort of spread out their story world across multiple platforms, and they had the web and they had motion graphics novels, most of the writers had to go back to the fan-created wiki to find out
track
information about their own show.
Right.
So,
right.
So fans are going to be part of the story world no matter what you do. If you create a great story, there's going to be fan participation. The challenge right now is to bring those fans under your domain so that you can monetize those fans and you can give them what they need and keep providing value. YouTube can't do that.
Right.
So,
it isn't as interactive as you would think.
Yes, and you know what, Lori? I have to say that I'm pretty surprised because
they haven't evolved it further.
Yeah, because you're still just taking the same linear model.
Yeah, they've added annotations where you can actually add text on top, and the text can say, click here and the story will go in this direction or whatever, but that's nothing really new. And, they'll have Google AdWords on top because it is owned by Google. But you're right,
There's not an extension of the story world. There's not a way that invites you to be immersed in the story world.
And even the comments are kind of linear and limited and go on forever and don't really guide you.
Right. So a different example, which is not video, is DeviantArt, where story worlds are created by the members of DeviantArt, and they all get involved.
And just tell everyone, because the other favorite thing about my favorite thing about Brian is that he knows so much, but so many of the things that he knows about nobody else knows about.
Well, people know about DeviantArt now, I think.
Well, and part of what we want to do here at this show and take this hour every week is to let people know about great trends in technology and in media and in entertainment. So tell us about DeviantArt, because that's a great platform.
Lori, part of what our job is to look at what's happening in the audience. You know, so we just said that they're acquiring audience. Well, where is the audience and what is it doing? It's much easier to go to where your audience is living than try and watch how they're behaving than it is to create and sell new behaviors. DeviantArt is the largest site for fan-generated art in the world. I think 60% out of the United States, 40% in.
Wow.
And storytellers like Clive Barker and Neil Gaiman are participating and collaborating with the members of DeviantArt to create stories. You talk about getting brand attention. Now brands are being starting to integrate into promotions and different things inside DeviantArt. So that's one. The other one that has fascinated me, and Lori, you've kicked me under many a table to keep me from, going off because I've become an evangelist, is Ingress. And Ingress takes all the technology of Google, which is, Place. It's Google Earth.
Right.
And,
it's a game, right?
Yeah, and layers in the largest game of capture the flag in the entire world.
So it's a mobile game. It's on your phone. You download the app, and they're making it available for the iPhone very soon.
Right. But the thing about the game is the game is a story.
Right.
And the gameplay is based on a story that's progressing, that deepens the world, so that when you enter to play, you're actually entering an actual story world. So
you go to the Google Store right now. You download Ingress,
or you can go to ingress.com and
okay, and then you decide the story is such that there's two teams, the Resistance and the Enlightened ones.
Correct.
And you decide which one you want to belong to.
Correct.
And then you use your phone to go to locations and capture
exotic matter. XM.
It sounds crazy, but millions of people are doing it.
And they're flying all over the world to do it. So in order to capture exotic matter, which, by the way, just the plot is that you don't know whether it's good or bad for the Earth. It's some alien thing. You don't know whether it's good or bad for the Earth. So if you're the enlightened ones, you think that it's coming for the benefit of mankind. It's kind of like V all over again. And if you're part of the Resistance, you think it's bad for mankind. So I joined the Resistance because usually my experience is anyone that calls themselves enlightened isn't. And so I joined that. And what you do is, in order to capture the XM area, you've got to triangulate. So you must cooperate with other people. And then they have these live events over periods where people come out and they actually play, and it's life-changing, and they become part of the story.
And I've heard this from our colleague Flint Dill, who's one of the producers.
Flint Dill, he's the story master of this
right,
whole
so
thing.
He was telling me that people are getting married, they're losing weight, they're literally changing their lives. And when I talk about this,
finding out where the local post office is.
Right. Well, and also learning about architecture and history. But the other thing, when I talk about this to brands, is they love the idea that something on a phone got someone to get up and go do something. Because when you're looking at, look, we're in the entertainment business. We want people to go put butts in seats on Fridays at the local theater. Or we want them to turn on ABC, or we want them to go buy that toothpaste or whatever it is. So this is absolutely amazing. And what I love about Ingress, just from a technology perspective, is it's social, local, mobile. It's Solomo. You know, it's all the stuff that we've been talking about.
And it's story driven.
And it's story driven.
Which is
Thank you, Brian.
most
Seth
social activity.
Yes.
Is ancillary to the story. Like when you're tweeting about something,
right.
You're not
in
the
addition,
story.
Right.
Yeah, and this is story driven. And the other thing about brands, and I've been talking about this for a long time, is, you know, with Ingress, I would have the ability to drive the participants through a retail environment or a shopping mall or whatnot. So all of a sudden I have a new measurement that could be called cost per immersion.
Yeah, I love that.
So how am I going to charge?
CPI, ladies and gentlemen. We just coined a new metric here. In Los Angeles.
Now we have to figure out what it is.
A United Broadcasting Network. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
But, you know, what I'm saying is you're really looking, when you're talking about VidCom, that's just one expression of story.
Right.
But games and stories are converging, and gamers would disagree with me, and traditional storytellers would disagree with me. But I can look at some television series and say, oh, my God, that's a game. Scandal's a game.
Right.
They keep moving up to another level.
Right. When you were talking about story worlds, and I thought back to Fringe, which I was absolutely obsessed about. It was on Fox.
I didn't notice that at all.
Well, I talked about it all the time. I tweeted about it. I read the East Coast feeds before the West Coast show went on the air. And my husband and I would argue about, oh, they weren't consistent here, or this didn't happen, or they're not allowed to do that, or, oh, my God, did you see what just happened? I mean, it was literally something that it's one of the only shows that we both were in the same TV room for, because he traditionally watches how to build it bigger, make a hole in a big piece of metal thing. And I'm usually watching the scripted shows in the other room. So Fringe got us both so excited, and we would talk hours about it.
So let me tell you what they converted you to. They converted you into a non-paid employee.
It's true.
So you become an evangelist for the show. You become their marketing.
Right.
You, the influencers that influence the influencers.
Right.
The whole dynamic
and
of
so
social
on and so on.
Yeah, and
right.
social community and social currency, and
right.
you know, so the storytellers now reach out. I guarantee you that Damon Lindelof knows who the influencers are in his community, and also the storytellers are becoming rock stars, just like the YouTube stars.
Right. Like so, and this is the other thing. If we go back again to VidCon, and what happens when you have a favorite YouTube show is you send that video to your friend and you say, check this out, either on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever it is that your thing is. And getting a link from a friend is so powerful. And then they send it, and then they send it.
But imagine now, if you got the link from the friend and you had the capability to own the story, to mash it up different ways, and to recreate that story world or an alternate universe. The millennial generations are used to doing that. And to a certain extent, you're always going to have a fanatic over a show that resonates. I mean, even in Supernatural, they actually did an episode that was a complete homage to the fan.
I remember seeing that. So let's talk a little bit about millennials for a minute, because we're all kind of obsessed about them, especially marketers. And I know you're quasi expert on millennials too. So what's the age group for a millennial?
So the top end right now is 30.
30, okay.
And then it's a generational down, about 20 years down, so it's 10. I mean, you can go to Wikipedia and look up Strauss-Howe generational theory to get the exact break, but you have fringe, and then you have early millennial, late millennial, and they're behaving in different ways.
Like boomers are behaving in different ways.
You know,
right?
I just wanted to mention, there was a short film that won the Toronto Film Festival called Noah. So it's a Toronto International Film Festival, TIFF, and if you look it up, it is the way a millennial would tell their own story. The whole thing is shot over the boy's shoulder, and it takes the whole...
All digital, is it?
It all plays out. The whole story plays out on his computer, and you would think that wouldn't be compelling, but there's one point where he goes to do something, to click something, and you literally, I watch, because I've demonstrated this to people, I watch people sit forward in their seat, and literally they go, no!
Right, because don't
do it.
It's so intense, right?
Yeah, and you look at it and you go, wow, this is a whole new way to tell a story, different tools to tell a story, but the essence of the storytelling hasn't changed at all.
Right, and
good stories.
You make such a great point, because the reason I keep bringing up VidCon is the stories that I keep hearing are about a bunch of these like 18 to 25-year-olds in an elevator next to the YouTube creator that they've traveled across the country to see. And they are so freaked out and fanatic about these YouTubers, right? And then I think about, I have a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old stepson and daughter, and they spend, like, they'll be sitting in front of linear television, but they'll be on YouTube, or they'll be on Tumblr, and they could be there for hours. And so their experience of content and storytelling is completely different than when I was growing up.
And communication.
And communication. And now, you know, I do tweet and tumble and Facebook a bit when I'm watching a show, but not like they do. They do it in a completely
Well, it's
different...
interesting now because Facebook is becoming a distribution channel for video.
Yes.
It's very clear. And
it's just links.
you know, I feel like people talk about Facebook like they used to talk about television, like Facebook is dead.
Right.
You know,
it's just different. It's different than what we thought it was.
But it isn't really dead because what they had, there were only 8 million tweets about the World Cup last night and 60 million Facebook interactions.
Right, right.
So, I mean, that's global. That's around the world. So what does that tell you? And the thing is, I never write off anything that I think can transform.
Yeah.
Yes. So what happens is it's never the incumbents that come up with the new business models. That was Roger Knoll at Stanford University. And you look at that, and it was Apple that reinvented the music business, not the music business.
Right. And that happens all the time,
But
too.
then the media companies turn and they say, okay, well, now we need to reinvent our music business, our business. I watch what's happening at Legendary. So
yeah, talk about that. Brian has a relationship with Legendary Studios.
So Tom Tull, who's the CEO of the whole rigmarole, I'm more on the television side, but the marketing for Godzilla was data-driven. They acquired a company, Applied Analytics is what it's called, and they created a new software called Edison, so that the money that they were spending on marketing was actually only targeting people who were likely to go see the movie.
Right, right, right.
So they saved a significant amount of money and also got people to go opening weekend through a whole different... Now, that's someone changing the model of movie marketing.
Right, using all these...
technology and data.
So let's just back up and translate a little bit here.
And I love that.
We'll translate a little bit here. So a lot of this activity that's captured in a YouTube environment and Facebook and all these digital platforms, you can actually know what people are doing. And so now we have all sorts of new technology platforms that are capturing that data and then giving us analytics that allow us now to make decisions about where people are going, what they're going to do, what they're going to like. We can break it down, demographics, we can go deeper. So for a brand, we can go really down the purchase funnel. We can find people all the way down so that we can send them information, send them content, drive them to do things based on the fact that we know what their behavior is and what they're doing.
And efficiently, what you're referring to is the same thing Tom Tull did, which is really efficient targeting. And people need curation.
Yep.
And the only thing that's going to help us curate what they get is data. Now, I'll admit that might lock them off from discovery of something else, but a friend of theirs will discover something else and get it to them. The one thing I think about data is, and the thing that, I don't want to use the word pisses me off, but
oh my God, he's gone blue.
He's gone blue. I find a challenge. So I do a lot of work with storytellers.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's gone blue, 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 blue.
Tim Kring is one of those storytellers. There are 65 million Heroes fans around the world that always wait for the next thing that he does. Okay, I'm the storyteller. I have a bunch of fans, and I create that fan interaction through my story, and that creates data. And yet I own none of that data, and I have no profit from that data. So the data is based on me driving the audience, and I have no revenues from those data and from the data. And the thing is, in the music industry, you learn a lesson: monetize everything around the music. So now you can monetize the data. Why shouldn't the storyteller or the studio or the network own that data? That's another revenue source that could actually fund content.
Right.
I'm just saying.
No, and Brian and I in meetings have had conversations with storytellers about owning their own data and not letting the distribution network of their show own that data, because in the end they can go back. It's a loyalty program. They can go back and bring their next project, their next show to that audience that they have discovered likes their stuff, so that you're not going to have to rebuild an audience each time.
And what that does is it creates, which I think is a trend that's coming. It doesn't mean it's going to be the trend, but it fosters collaborative storytelling between the storyteller and the audience.
Oh yeah, totally.
Which will be a genre of storytelling. It's happening already.
Look at my favorite story is ABC Family. What ABC Family did with Pretty Little Liars, where they were just they knew their millennial female audience so well, and they just pounded on them with content and cliffhangers and highest Twitter interactivity ever for any show. Very niche audience, but you know what? If I want to reach millennial women, where am I going to go?
So I want to tell you, I actually stumbled upon Switched at Birth last night, which I'd never seen on ABC Family.
And getting back to that, Switched at Birth, The Foster Family, all of those shows, ABC Family goes back to the fans of Pretty Little Liars and sends them information about all those new shows.
Well, and that is not I mean, when I was watching the show, I thought, oh my God, the conversations that are taking place in these shows are so relevant to what's going on in the lives of kids.
In our communities, yeah.
Right. So it's going to stimulate conversation. And my thought was, well, I got to go see where that conversation is happening and how they're doing that. And then the other side is, when you talk about data-driven storytelling, on the other side you have Amazon and Netflix deciding what kind of content to create for their audiences because they have data to go for, and the audience is going to like this. And, oh, by the way, they have kids, and we notice that they're watching this, so we can create a program like that. It's fascinating.
Which is the famous story of how House of Cards was bought because of Netflix looking at data around Kevin Spacey, around political dramas. And
I just think, and you don't need to be a Kevin Spacey to succeed. I just think this is the most.
Some may say you shouldn't be Kevin Spacey in order to.
I had the chance to address members of the Producers Guild, and the thing that excited me most at the end of what I had
Brian,
to say,
tell the audience why.
No, we don't need to say that.
He won an award for being. Tell them what the award was.
Just for distinguished service to the guild.
Just for distinguished service. There it is again. Wherever I go with Brian Seth Hurst, is that. Wow, you're stepping on my foot. All right, back off. Okay, thank you.
But I think at the moment that was the most exciting for me was I said, you know what, as storytellers, whether it's people coming into the movie theater for 2 hours or suspending their world for an hour to watch television or to come into a gaming environment, we're creating these story worlds and people want to participate. And I think just because of what's available, and you got to learn your craft in any artistic venture. You can't
just show up and not be a great storyteller and expect miracles to happen, right?
But craft in place, it is the most exciting time for storytellers. And at the same time, they have to be entrepreneurs. They have to know marketing. They have to know data. Or get people around them that have that expertise.
And understand, getting back again to one of our themes here at the Laurie H. Schwartz Show, is this understanding about the creative enablement that a lot of this technology brings to the table. So that that data is now becoming the new creative in so many ways. Like to be a statistician now is actually sexy. If you can actually analyze.
Depends what you wear, but yes.
Right, exactly. But you can actually bend that data to tell a great story and to help you figure out your next steps. And so now surrounding yourself with the right tools and people that understand that data is just as important as a great writer and a great director. It's all now part of this package.
I totally agree. And Laurie, you and I have been on the quest. How many data companies have we looked at in terms of analytics and how they can parse things
many data companies.
And break down, because we know.
Reminds me of my dating life in the 30s. Actually, I think
I don't want
so many men.
I don't want to be. I don't want to be. I'm not touching that. I don't want to be arrogant here.
Where's the applause, by the way?
I don't want to be arrogant.
All right.
God. I don't want to be arrogant here, but I completely forgot where I was going. But I think that you have so many tools at your disposal, and you got to learn to use it. And I lost my train because I got so excited about you. Oh, so many data companies.
Yes.
So we actually know, as storytellers, you and I, because it's our job to actually know the storytelling industry, and we both are storytellers and producers, what exactly is needed for us as a storyteller. And as we go out into the data world and we say, can you do this and do you do this? And oddly enough, where we ended up was in the financial data world.
Right.
Where there are compliance things and where that software could actually be turned and twisted. And so we're actually collaborating to create that product for entertainment and media companies because it doesn't exist the way we need it as storytellers to exist.
And Brian and I had so many meetings with data companies to say to them, look, Hollywood companies don't understand that they don't have to guess if they create something where the audience is, that you can actually build your audience, find it, and then send them your show.
But even if you're the storyteller and you don't want to compromise your storytelling based on data.
But you could still find your audience.
You're still informed as to where they're living. Right. It's like John Chu will say, well,
a great showrunner.
Great filmmaker, great showrunner, Legion of Extraordinary Dancers, Never Say Never, G.I. Joe 2, The Retaliation.
And he's also managing Justin Bieber's personal life now, too, I understand.
Oh, I didn't know
I'm just
that.
Kidding. Nobody's managing that.
Yeah, he would do a great job. But, he says, look, I want to walk them down the hallway, but I want to be the one to open the door.
Right.
Whereas there are other stories.
It's managing your IP,
yes,
basically.
There are other storytellers that say, I just want to put them in the hallway and let them discover. So there are different ways to tell the story, but the storyteller, that's about as much control as they have until the end of the game when the audience really takes over the story. And here's the television show.
Big thing coming. Can we hear some sort of big thing noise?
It's like a bad Borscht Belt act. For those of you who don't know what the Borscht Belt act is, it's a comedy in the 40s, 50s, and 60s that took place in the Catskills of New York. Okay.
Great food.
I'm dating myself.
Lots of schmaltz.
Jenny Grossigram's rye bread.
Yeah,
Fabulous.
that's right.
Okay. So the exciting thing is that even after your show goes off the air and you've built an audience, they're going to still be active with your IP. And there's a million things you can do. Look, Heroes is coming back as Heroes Reborn because the community is still out there.
Well, look at
4 years later.
Look at Star Trek.
Exactly.
And they relaunched the franchise, and the fans were happy because they followed the rules about relaunching the franchise.
And that reboot was phenomenal.
Oh, that reboot was so phenomenal. I was so happy.
Yeah, it was like you walked out of there if you were Trekkie and you went.
You were high. No, you were high.
It.
I mean, I remember having sushi dinner with some friends of mine who were all Star Trek fans, and I think for hours we were talking. You know, we were so happy because they had been true to it, they had honored it.
Well, not
and they
only
gave us
that,
more.
but I believe from a cosmic and metaphysical point of view that the universe can fold over itself.
Oh, I totally
there are
agree.
different levels of time, and they actually had it in the
And
movie.
the
You're
new-
going like,
the new-
ooh, this is deep.
Yeah, and Chris Payne is so hot. So I wanted to ask you something, Brian, which I'm going to do for every guest here at the show, is to ask you, where do you find out new trends? Like, how do you personally keep up? Very good point. Well stated. Well stated. But where do you go to get, find out what's going on? Because one of the things that people say to me all the time is, there's so much going on. There's so much disruption. I'm worried about missing something. How do I keep up? What do you do to feed your brain? Like,
okay,
where do you...
my whole career has been based on spending the first couple hours in the morning, which I'm not always available, researching.
He's grouchy in the morning.
Looking because I'm doing my work. So
I'm not judging. I'm sort of.
So I'm looking at what's out there, and then all of a sudden, just like disruption, I'll be someplace, I'll see something or hear about something, and I'll just know in my gut I need to go find out about that. I need to go find out about that. And the Ingress thing was like that. The DeviantArt thing was like that. I tend to happen on things a little bit earlier and then have to wait for the world to catch up. There are also newsletters that I read. I mean, I do rely on TubeFilter now. I still rely on Synopsys, Digital Media Wire, but I go through them, and Deadline Hollywood, definitely, because all those things, I have to converge them because there's no single newsletter that's converging all that stuff.
Right, and you're not using, a lot of people like some of the modern curation tools. I find that I just like to read the full-on newsletters myself these days instead of the curation tools.
Yeah, because they're not going to get what's just starting to bubble. They're not going to see that.
Right.
But some of the people we work with will say, oh, did you hear about this or did you hear about that? And you and I are constantly emailing, but people are constantly emailing us. And Lori and I say there's not a week that goes by where someone doesn't pitch us a new technology.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think the most impactful disruptions, I think, are the ones that impact your lifestyle. And I always tell the story, and I know you're going to...
Oh, and I do watch Millennial Behavior. And I talk to Mike Hayes.
You do.
I took Mike Hayes and Morley Winograd, who wrote Millennial Momentum and Millennial Majority. I talk to them a lot because they sort of tell me where things are going to go. They're like
writers, analysts, futurecasters. Yeah. Well, I was going to say that the way that I learn about things is just being an anthropologist in my own life, and I always tell a story about Dry Bar, which totally disrupted the salon business and
our business because
right.
you keep making appointments to get your hair.
That's right. And ladies and gentlemen, I have not gone to the Dry Bar before today's show. Perhaps next time I will, but it has really changed my life. And how it happened was, this woman was, she was a blow dry artist or whatever, and she would just take the blow dryer and go house to house. And she realized that a lot of women, they said to her, "Here's my problem. I don't want to have to go through the whole salon just for a blow dry. I don't want to change my outfit and tip 500 people and go through this whole thing. I just want to in and out blow dry." And that's how Dry Bar was born, and it solved a life problem. And for me, busy working crazy mom person, I love that I just click on my app and book an appointment, and I don't have to create a relationship with a new salon person.
And
so it's disruption.
Yeah, I was going to say this is constructive disruption.
Yes.
not destructive disruption. And Uber, I'm now watching with great interest
Yes.
of what's happening in regulations and stuff, because technology is way ahead of the government.
Oh yeah.
You know, you
But
look
it's
at
also-
how Congress is trying to respond. They can't.
I
you
feel
know.
like it also. I feel like technology's behind behavior too. Like it can't keep up with how fast we have. Our expectations are so high. I think it was Louis C.K. who said he couldn't believe how mad someone was getting when they were waiting for an email to come back. And when you think about how far the email has to travel, like all around the world, and people are getting pissed off. When you think about years ago, we didn't have those expectations, but I get frustrated too now.
I get it,
you know?
because the other day, I mean, we were in the middle of negotiations, and Tim Kring is in Israel shooting something, and I'm still, I don't take it for granted. I'm going, oh my God, I'm texting Tim in Israel, and I'm saying, call now. And he picks up the phone and calls. And I think 10 years ago or 20 years ago, forget it, I couldn't even log on.
Right.
You know, I had to find out the hotel dial code and how to get out and all that stuff.
And was he having a shawarma?
No, he was out in the middle of the Negev. But what you're talking about, when there's this idea of, so now they have to catch up with these automatic cars that are going to drive themselves, because
Yes.
how are they going to regulate
grid.
the environment?
Right.
And the thing is, people pick up the behaviors pretty quickly. But here's what I'm also thinking.
Yes.
That
Share it with us,
there's
Brian.
there's stuff that's inherent that we do all the time.
Yes.
But there is, I think, this social backwash that may happen about us being with each other and not through our devices. So you see what used to take place online, now it's all about meetup and going out into the real world.
Yeah, in the
and having
end, we're still
interactions.
human beings. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, I forgot my phones. Phones. I forgot my phones. I left them at home before I realized I was out on a date. And for 4.5 hours, I didn't have my phones. And by 20 minutes into it, I was like, wow, this is great. I'm actually with this person.
Here's the opposite thing, though, in terms of technology. So I think I put this on my Facebook the other day, but I had like the greatest trip the other day, because basically I Ubered to get my car. I used the American Airlines app to manage my ticket process through the airport. I used TSA Pre, so I finally didn't have to undress again, even though I was creating a lot of great relationships with security guards. And it was the most relaxing, stress-free travel I have had in years. So all those stress points now are starting to be taken care of by great tech solutions.
Unless you can't make a connection.
Unless you can't make a connection. No, there's still always going to be. I'm just saying that what I love about all of this, and why I keep saying to friends, like, dive in and be an anthropologist, is that I'm always trying that new thing, because I want to see, does it work? Is it changing my behavior? Is it really good?
And it is the brands that now recognize, one, that you have to be part of people's lifestyles, right. And two, they have to feel some sense of ownership of the brand themselves, like they're influencing the product development of the brand.
Right. Like I have these gluten-free granola bars that I have for my kid, and I go to all lengths to find these gluten-free bars. They're Annie's chocolate chip gluten-free bars, because I keep sugar and other stuff away from her, and I will find them on Amazon. I'll go to the Target. Wherever it is, I will go to find these bars, because no one else has.
Can't you order them online?
Well, you can on Amazon, actually, but I'm just saying that because I'm dedicated to the brand, because I believe in Annie's, and maybe it's not true, but I've bought into the brand equity and the product, and it's great for my family. So I will do anything I can to get that product. And that's the kind of passion that we're all trying to tap into.
And also, just the other level is that the brands that are enabling your experiences, whether it's Uber or whether they're sponsorship that enables you to have that experience and gets those stress points out, you remember those brands on a deeper level, that they've made your life easier.
Yeah, there was a great, I was just reading about it, and I wish I'd read the whole article, but this one at the Cannes Lions this week, the big advertising event on the Riviera, which I would love to be invited to, and we could do Universal Broadcasting live there next year on the Riviera. But there was a brand, I think it was Nivea, a suntan lotion for babies or something like that. I might be mixing up brands. That they actually did a wearable in a print ad. And it was, the wearable told you that the kid was getting, was lost. So you would put the wearable bracelet, it was made out of cardboard, and you could put it on your kid, and you would know if they were too far away or not. So they've actually taken wearable tech, sensors, put it in a print ad, and then associate it with the brand, which is all about sun protection, so protecting your kid. So a great creative enablement of a technology, right?
Yep. And the one thing I don't know how much time we have left, but we haven't talked about content as marketing at all, and how whether you're marketing a film or whether you're marketing a product, a commercial or a campaign just isn't doing it anymore. And even
That's
if
a
it
great
is,
topic, yep.
even if it is, I mean, when you click on a video that you're going to play online, those first 3 seconds almost of the A-roll, those first 3 seconds almost have to grab your attention so that you want to watch the rest of it. So you're not forced to watch a commercial. So now creativity is coming into commercials again.
Yes.
In a way that it hasn't before.
Like the Mad Men.
Yeah, because they have to keep
so
you.
is Martinis.
Yeah,
How's that?
they have to
Martinis
keep
are back.
you engaged. I mean, I just coached a guy that's creating something for a new tequila company. It was a contest of film students. And we talked about a script, and I said, how are you going to keep people engaged to go from one episode to the next? And he thought about it, and he did it. So now instead of a commercial, it's a story that's being told, and how the brand is part of these people's lives in the story.
And by the way, this is a big infrastructure problem in terms of ad agencies and brands, how they budget and how they have moved through the manufacturing process over the last few years, that everything is about delivering a product, and therefore everything is campaign based. And so it's very hard to storytell because everything is campaign, and they don't build budgets to roll out and brand build a story anymore.
Well, and we had a client come to us, potential client come to us, because they said the agency only understood it as far as the campaign goes, and what they really wanted were master storytellers because they wanted their story to be told.
And I think this is going to come back. So this is this is a big topic to handle, but there's a whole battle going on right now between programmatic advertising and, whether it's going to kill creative. And you could do hours and hours of radio talk on that topic alone. But what's your thinking about programmatic versus, long-term?
I think there's a place for both of them. I don't think one's going to go away for the other. I think everything will be relegated to what it does best, just like when radio came along, when television came along, they said it would kill radio.
And here we are in a new form of radio.
Right. It's just, and people sounded the death knell for the variety show. And then you had American Idol. So things evolve. And I think there's room for programmatic because there's excess inventory, there's targeted advertising, and there'll be times when that's appropriate. There'll be times when a traditional 30 or 15 is appropriate, and there'll be times when content is marketing or storytelling within an environment is appropriate.
So if you're a new business and you're trying to figure out how to market, would you go to a boutique ad agency and hire them? Would you go straight to a great writer or producer? Because I've seen that struggle too, where a lot of the agencies just hire their own people and they create a content department, and that inevitably fails because it's a particular kind of talent.
It is.
That can write and produce. Or right now, as I've been telling you, I was at the Internet Retailer Conference a few weeks ago in Chicago, and all these e-retailers are hiring and building studios inside of their offices because they're bringing on influencers and bloggers and fashion experts, and they're shooting video of products, and then that's what's selling the product online. So what do? Do you hire Hollywood people to do everything now?
Well, I don't think there's one size fits all, and I think it's a cultural thing as well. If you're a big company with a big budget, you're used to a relationship with an advertising agency. An advertising agency is going to acquire a boutique content creation agency so they can respond to what's needed. On the other side, if you're a smaller company, I'm all for, everything is about aggregation and disintegration. The advertising agency was huge, then it broke up into small boutique agencies, and then it aggregated again. So it does happen. But if it was me and I had something new and I had a product that was new, or I was introducing a new version of an old product, I would want a boutique agency where I could get hands-on thinking by really creative executives who were networked, because it's all about the network. It's not about a big agency. It's about what a boutique agency can pull in. Who's in their network?
Right. Who can you bring to the table that's the right resource at the right time,
Yeah,
and not charge me for
correct,
everything?
and it's scalable.
Right.
So it's according to the need. So you're not paying a huge overhead and retainer.
Right.
You're paying according to what you need.
You're not paying for Bob in Office 201 who has nothing to do with your project.
Or a junior executive who's going to learn off your stuff.
Right.
So I think the opportunity is that you find out what your needs are, and a boutique agency will be as agile as you need them to be. And hopefully they will be really creative and really well connected. But you want to spend, these days, you want to get the most out of your dollar.
I think you're so right.
I don't think you need to be cheap. I just think you need to be wise.
Even though you are kind of cheap too.
Who, me?
Yeah, as a person. No, just kidding. So just we're getting near the end of our first inaugural show. Let's have applause for that one. Okay, applause is coming in a second. All right, there we go. I know you have.
I can't believe that guy in the front row just threw his underwear.
It's so
happens
so
all the time.
sexy.
I know.
What should we be looking out for that you're working on right now? I mean, we have our StoryTech stuff going on, and we'll talk about that.
Oh my gosh!
The
Well, I would watch this space for the next iteration of Conspiracy for Good, which is a story that, by your participation, you can actually make a difference in the real world.
And this is an initiative, a story that you're working on with Tim Crane.
Yes, and Liz Heller and Bob Soderstrom. The four of us are the executive
and
producers.
It's being produced by Legendary?
Not yet.
Not yet. Soon, we hope.
Well, there are different companies that are vying for the opportunity.
Okay.
Tim is a great master storyteller. And then working on a couple of projects with Bina Murray, which with a man named Daniel Tibbetts, who I actually adore. I think he has impeccable integrity and he gets things done. And the relationship is such that everything is discussed. So it's like the complete opposite of what I would think Hollywood would be.
Modern Hollywood.
Yeah, and there's just real. They're a great company, and their ability in casting is unsurpassed. And then and I have a spiritual book out, and I'm about to start another one. So I have that whole other side.
Where can we find the book?
The book is called Whole, and you can go to Amazon.com and just search Brian Seth Hurst, and it's an ebook and it's a paper book and paperback, and yeah.
And also, Brian and I, of course, work at...
that's WHOLE.
Whole, ladies and gentlemen. And Brian and I are also managing partners at StoryTech.
Which I love. Every day with you is a fun ride.
And we could do... you can find us at story-tech.com, and we'll be doing tours and content at CES.
CES, NAB.
And you can also join me back here again Fridays at 1 o'clock every week for the Lori H. Schwartz Show, where we're going to dig into the tech trends that are impacting your business. And I know we're going to have Brian here again, probably monthly. You'll be visiting us and telling us about stuff that's going on. It is a big world out there, lots of disruption going on, and you need a place to come and hear about it, right? So thank you so much, Brian Seth Hurst, for joining us.
You're welcome. And I just completely respect Lori as the trends maven because she keeps the clients ahead of you have to know what to anticipate.
It's exhausting.
You anticipate.
Thank you, everybody. Come join us again. We'll see you next Friday at 1 o'clock here on the Universal Broadcasting Network. Thanks to Tony and thanks to Ann for the opportunity. Bye, everybody.
Shows that make you laugh. Shows that make you think. Music that moves you. It could only be one place. Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.